Minority opposition parties in the city of Johannesburg, we felt it was necessary that we give our position on the latest developments within the city. As the MOP, which is the minority opposition parties, we are dismayed at the conduct of the Democratic Alliance in the governing of the city of Johannesburg. The DA, under the stewardship of temporal mayor Dr. Mpho Phalatse, is arrogant, corrupt, and accusatory. The media has become a theatrical stage of drama and performance for temporal mayor Dr. Mpho Phalatse, to the detriment of the city and council. Where have you ever heard of a sitting mayor attacking a speaker in public, instead of using the structures and processes provided for engagements? Why does the temporal mayor Dr. Mpho Phalatse see it proper to call a media briefing to account for service delivery in the media and not to the communities through the legislative structures? Our people do not know the mayor. When the people of El Dorado Park were suffering, she could not go and attend to their issues. She told them to give her a 2 weeks written notice before she could go and attend to them. Only when she was faced with a motion of no confidence did she go and attend to the issues of the Soweto residents. The DA has reduced Dr. Mpho Phalatse to a puppet who is trigger happy when it comes to purging black professionals in the city. Because of the DA, anyone who is black and not aligned to the DA is corruption suspect number one. Said as we are labeled today as an illegal coup of corruption. The reason the city is in a financial crisis is because of the DA. This was never the case before. This was never the case before they fired the city manager through illegal investigations. They purged the capable CEO who won Africa's Best CEO Award. They purged the COO, executive directors of departments, and CEO of entities, all because they wanted white people from the Cape who are aligned to the DA to come and run the city. Our temporal mayor, Dr. Mpho Phalatse, seems to be in an automated mode of getting instruction from Cape Town. The pressure to obey or else lose your mayoral chain is heavy on her psychology. And she has to interfere unethically and illegally so. This was evident when she wanted to force our then coalition to appoint a city manager that the DA Federal Council wanted to employ at all costs. This was after she was introduced to the preferred candidate by her masters. That DA preferred candidate was eventually hired as city manager in Tshwane. The DA has single-handedly destabilized this city for their own sophisticated corruption. The city's financial situation is today in tatters, with a grim possibility that paying salaries seem highly impossible, a first in the city. The questions that are worth asking by those who think the DA is a better political party are as follows. What was the financial outlook when the DA took over in November 2021? What is the financial outlook now? What is it that the DA did with the money? Why was Why was the money returned to Treasury due to lack of spending? Why and how is it that the city's financial woes are now a problem of a coalition which was only in office for a week or so? The fact of the matter is that the DA-led coalition has pretended to be holier and more competent than it actually is. What is of serious concern is that the DA has approached the governance in the city with a holier-than-thou attitude, an attitude which suggests that they are beyond reproach. With this kind of attitude, the DA has gone about labeling criticism and hailing insults, calling everyone who acts against them corrupt. On the 23rd of November, as councillors, we are expected, at the request of the DA, to approve a 2 billion rand loan from DBSA. I'm not going to talk much about that because my colleagues will talk about that. The Executive Mayor, Councillor Mpho Phalatse, has failed the people of Johannesburg and must vacate office and stop pretending she is occupying it for the benefit of the citizens. The city deserves better than mere populist stance, a clear pretense that masks corruption and incompetence by liars who pretend to be better than others. As minority parties in the city of Johannesburg, we will work hard to restore the city back to its former glory as the world African city, which prioritizes service delivery, which has been halted by the incompetent DA-led coalition. The loan that we're talking about, that we're supposed to be approving on the 23rd of November, has got nothing to do with the residents of the city of Johannesburg. But it is a mere DA political panado so that they don't get exposed for mismanagement, maladministration, and lack of competence and capacity for planning and implementation of a turnaround strategy. You ask yourself, with this 2 billion rand loan that they need, where is the plan to repay that money? Because that money has got to be paid back in June. Let me talk to the motion of no confidence. As you are all aware, Dr. Mpho Phalatse was removed on the 28th of September, which was then reversed by the judgment of the courts, which you are all aware of. But I want to highlight the following issues, which relates to the unhealthy relationship between Action SA and the DA, which seems to hinder the work of council. First, Councillor Ngobeni walks out of a sitting to collapse a quorum. Mashaba reopens his own corruption case on the 26th of October to try and prevent the motion of no confidence against Dr. Mpho Phalatse. Action SA submits some reports to Section 79 Committee on the 14th of October. I want the residents to know today that this was not an illegal coup of corrupt cabal as it is being painted by those who are in power at the stage through the media. This was a clear democratic process that showed that majority of councillors, by virtue of being majority, it means they are also representing the majority of the residents, of the city of Johannesburg, who therefore do not have confidence in our temporal mayor, Dr. Mpho Phalatse. Reliance on technicalities in the judgment, which the Speaker made the right decision not to appeal and challenge the skewed and unfair and biased judgment, is short-lived and will not change the outcomes of the next motion. It even strengthens the motion. She was removed by 137 votes. Now she'll be removed by 140 votes. We want her to take the bull by the horn and come to meet us in council. Let us temper there, not on the courts and in the media. She is a politician, not an actress. Very, very soon, she will realize that. How is she, this is really interesting. How is she expecting an illegal, corrupt cabal to approve her loan report in council? Indeed, we shall see. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon to all the media houses present here this afternoon, your viewers and obviously all listeners, more especially the residents of our beautiful city of Johannesburg. A very good afternoon to you. My name is Kevin Reddy. I am a former councillor that represented the United Independent Movement, and whilst that is a separate matter and a separate issue, I can categorically say that I was dismissed from my position for voting with my with my conscience on the 31st or the 1st of September of this year. But it's a decision that we are handling separately, and the case will obviously then be separate. I am going to be speaking specifically around the financial status and the loan in specific that is doing the rounds at this point in time. Now, I want to start off this afternoon by saying it is with grave concern that one tries to wrap one's mind around how is it possible that an MMC, or the current MMC, Julie Sotheby, was not in the position of bringing to our attention, when I say our, I'm talking because I am advisor to the minorities of the city of Johannesburg, to the attention of council that the city was in a financial predicament and they required a short-term loan of 2 billion rand. Now, noting that in May of this year, May 22, Council approved a funding plan for the medium-term capital budget by utilizing Standard Bank to the facility, or the facility thereof, to the tune of 675 million rand. It is further very, very concerning that the city in general never really requires short-term loans. Now you'll realize that even when the ANC had taken out loans, it was always long-term loans, and it was very project-based and never ever loans to try and just have quick fixes and salaries, etc., etc. So it's very concerning that when we look at this, we try to ascertain why certain, or why suddenly there's such an urgency that this report has to be tabled and has to be approved by council on the 23rd of this month. Now, needless to say, may I not be misleading the House when I say that the minority parties within the city of Johannesburg, after the budget speech of this year, had not supported the budget. And it begs an answer and a question at the same time of why then are the corrupt, as my colleague, my learned colleague Magwenshu had alluded to, why then does the corrupt cabal, those that never actually supported your budget, why then are they now expected to go and approve a Development Bank of South Africa loan to the tune of 2 billion rand? As a city, I want to give you some food for thought. As a city, over the last 10 years, we have accrued debt in excess of 22 billion rand. As a city, we are owed in excess of 40 billion rand. Yes, you heard me right. Billion with a B. By the businesses and residents within the city of Johannesburg. Now we find ourselves writing off debt. The question is, there's a very reputable mall in Sandton and a very reputable medical aid company in Sandton that have both had their debt written off. My question to that is, why? It's in the public domain, it's there, and our question is why? Why was it written off? And what's in it for those that are writing off this debt? Questions that we want to ask ourselves today is, where is this supposed debt recovery plan? Where is the strategy or the city strategy around revenue strengthening and the streamlining thereof? What is the plan for the advancement of debt collection? And then we get to the DBSA loan of 2 billion rand. Now we need a loan of 2 billion rand. Our questions as the minorities of the city and an advisor, I look at this entire document and I look at the preempts thereof and I ask myself the question, who negotiated this loan? Why isn't there a clear indication? If you look at the document itself, it refers to the JIBAR. JIBAR simply meaning the Johannesburg interest rate. And we all know that it's a fluctuating rate. And the problem with that is that this agreement has a tendency to say that they will take, over a 3-month period, they will take the JIBAR and the 2 months preceding, they will then go on that. Now, if we know of what the current financial status of the city is, our question then is, at what rate is JIBAR going to currently be sitting at when we do reach that? Number 2, attached to the JIBAR rate, they said it'll be on a 3.04% over and above the JIBAR rate. So my question is that not a grey area? Is that not a grey area for us as residents of the city of Johannesburg? Because the current state of the city's finances is in an absolute horrendous state. Concerning, though, is the fact that the objective, according to the thrust, the objective of the loan seeks to bridge against short-term cash flow mismatches that may arise. Another way of saying, we don't have money to pay salaries. We don't have money to do the simple stuff, and hence we need that. Concerning, because we now can see that our city sits in the hands of people that do not understand finances, do not understand what it is, but are too quick to point fingers to all other parties, call us rogues, call us cabals, but do not understand the fundamentals of what we sought to do on the 31st to the 1st of September, when we raised our hands and then we were axed for doing the right thing, for standing up against the corrupt and for those that want to push the agenda of thinking that they know better. But in actual fact, this is where we find ourselves. Now, when the current MMC for Finance, MMC Julie Sotheby, when they sat with the budget committee earlier this year when they were busy putting up the budget, why was there no mitigation and negation of risks? Because you suddenly, this had surfaced around May or June of this year, I'm speaking under correction, but I'm sure that the terms of agreements had come through Feb, March this year. So you already knew when you took office around December and January of last year and this year, you would realize that there was a situation, yet you told the city and the residents thereof yourselves that the city was in perfect hands and the city was in a very, very financially stable position. And suddenly now we hear that we need 2 billion rand. How is it that suddenly this loan becomes so urgent? Why must this loan be passed with urgency? I want to switch to a piece that I really applied my mind around. You know, the minorities are now expected to approve a loan to the tune of 2 billion rand. But do you know that the agreement does not even incorporate, as my colleague had alluded to a few minutes ago, it doesn't even have or incorporate a recovery plan of how. I also want to bring to your attention the following, that this 2 billion rand that is linked to the quotient of JIBA and a 3.04% rate, do you know that this is supposed to be all paid back within one payment on the 30th of June 2023? We are now sitting almost at the middle of November 2022. So let's count out November, let's count out December. That is the amount of time that we have to come up with 2 billion rand plus the JIBA and the rate thereof. Very, very concerning, needless to say, considering that JIBA tends to fluctuate so tremendously. Questions as minorities, where we sat down and we deliberated around the issues, are: how did the DBSA land this supposed loan that we are going to? How did they get it? Was this process not a competitive process? Was other banks not gone to the likes of the ABSAs, the Standard Banks, the Capitex, the Nedbanks, etc., etc.? Are we getting the best bang for our buck? And our question then would be, was there a vetting process, or was it internalized by the few that always seems to know better? It's very, very concerning, because if there was a vetting process, then please indulge us and tell us what strategy was used and provide us with a report. It's important for us to know, because after all, we have a right to protect and counteract any form of irregular expense. And lastly, if we too busy running around trying to source loans and seem to be portraying clear and clean audits, I want to speak to the residents. I don't think the internal processes that run here should actually affect the potholes that you have to drive through every single day, the overflowing sewages that you have to literally endure every single day. I don't think the lack of service delivery that you are dealing with every single day, I don't think you should be concerning yourself about the internal politics, but rather asking the city to do what you pay us to do, and that is to deliver services to you. It is with great sadness and heaviness that as the minorities and as an advisor to the minorities that we sit and we say that we have to really apply our mind when it comes to whether or not we would be going ahead to support this or not. Because under no circumstances has there been any substantiation or validation as to why we require this and why suddenly. I thank you.
Colleagues, now we would like to open up for questions if there are any. Are you ready to take questions?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, Mbali,
We are.
you may.
Oh, yes, Kevin, ready?
Okay, Mbali Tatani from Newsroom Africa. It's quite clear that you're against this 2 billion rand VSA loan. What is the sentiment coming from your partners in council? Will you be, of course you won't be voting for this in council to be passed. What is the sentiment coming up from your partners? Will the ANC and the EU also vote or vote against getting this loan in council? What do you think? I know you keep on emphasizing on the fact that why do you need this loan? Do you think that this loan is urgently needed to pay for salaries, perhaps? I don't know. You would know better than me. In terms of how much needs to be paid back in full when it comes to the 2 billion rand loan, is it clear how much will you be paying back with interest? Also, what is the status of the coalition between the ANC and the EFF and you guys? Where does that coalition stand at the moment? And just lastly, you said that you guys will be bringing a motion. When is this motion going to be brought to the House? When is the programming meeting sitting? Will it then be taken to council? Is it possible that this motion can sit this week? For the Mayor Mpho Phalatse, that motion you said you'll be bringing forward. Thank you very much.
I suggest we take another question so that we can take it as a group. Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. My name is Muluku Mulod. I have your statement here. I think there are several points others you really stated. There's just this one you haven't spoken to. Mayor Phalatse overreach and interference in procurement process. When you spoke about all the other four, this one you haven't spoken about it, and you gave us the impression that you're going to talk to it. Okay, maybe just elaborate there as you respond. But I also want to go to the issue with you, sir, from ATM, when you were insisting that there was nothing wrong with the initial motion of no confidence, which was overturned by the High Court. It is clear that you don't agree with that court judgment, but it is there. And one thing that I just want you to clarify, you are saying Mr. Mashaba resuscitated the case, presumably with the intention to sidestep that particular second motion of no confidence that the Speaker had to withdraw. And the impression is that he did that because in terms of your rules as counsel, my understanding is that if there's a matter that's being adjudicated elsewhere, you therefore cannot deal with it. But I put it to you, say, that Mr. Mashaba's case, him challenging the report through judicial review, the report of the public protector, I have it here. It goes back to 2021. So I may not know. Perhaps you might want to explain yourself when you say he resuscitated it. The case was there already. It's before the court. That is why the High Court in Johannesburg found that you as the programming committee, violated basically your own rules. But still on that one, as you say that you're going to put a motion of no confidence, and I suppose it was also sponsored by one of the minority parties, I'm not too sure who it was. Are you still going to, seeing that the first one was kicked out by the court, the second one you knew that because they had written a letter to you, that is the DA, to indicate that they're going to challenge it in court, and chances are, if the conditions were the same, they were still going to win. Is your next motion of no confidence still going to be anchored on the same reasons that you were advancing previously? And why can't you just, because I'm not too sure that you need any reason to vote the mayor out. If you just don't believe in her, why can't you just say, we don't want her, and without really bringing issues that are being adjudicated elsewhere? Because in the eyes of the public, it seems as if you as the programming committee, you don't know what you're doing. You can't even interpret your own rules. And of course, I am saying this because the court said that you were wrong. Okay, I'll stop there for now. You did point out that there's a medical aid company whose debt was actually written off in Sante. Surely, if you do know the name, you said it's in the public domain. What is the name of the company? How much debt was scrapped? And you are not a councillor, but you were a councillor until now. As much as you were accusing the mayor of using the media, saying it's more like a theatrical space for her, but you are doing the same yourself. These issues in particular, in council, and I'm more interested on this one where you say the debt of people who can afford was scrapped off. What have you done when you were still a councillor, and those of you who are still in council, they're using the structures without coming to the media? I'll stop here for now.
Thank you, colleague. We'll take another round after answering. Are they coming to you? The mics? Okay. Is it possible to put this one closer?
Good afternoon to the media.
Okay, hold on, please. Which one? This one? Okay, it's fine.
Good afternoon to the media and to the residents of the city of Johannesburg. I would like to respond to Ms. Mali Tetani on her first question, which is the sentiment of the support that is required for the position that we would have represented in these discussions. But I would like to remind firstly the media that for the status quo in the city of Johannesburg to be in its current form, it's due to the minority opposition parties and their resilience towards the undermining and condescending behavior of the Democratic Alliance to date. Now the sentiment remains consistent. I'm not sure if specifically you would like to establish whether there's a relation between Johannesburg politics and Tshwane politics, but let me assure you that this coalition that will be formed in the city of Johannesburg, and it's not led by the ANC, by the way, it's a co-governing structure, was negotiated upon in February this year, before anyone could understand that the city of Johannesburg could change and the current administration could change. And this was due to the fact that the Democratic Alliance was not focusing on critical functions of the city. However, trying to personalize offices by the purging of senior management, like my colleagues have said, as well as the issue that angered us more than anything, which was to displace 130 professional employees who were there to assist, in fact, in the smooth running of the city of Johannesburg. Because without institutional memory, I can assure you, we will arrive at the situation that we are in today. So the sentiment is consistent between all parties that are involved, the minority opposition parties, the African National Congress, and the economic freedom fighters. The state of the coalition, I'm not sure if you're talking about...
Sorry, I asked if you'll be voting. Will the ANC and the PFF be voting with you for the DBSA law or voting against?
No, thank you very much for the clarity. In fact, I am not going to speak on behalf of the ANC nor the EFF on the matter, but on behalf of the minority opposition parties and our understanding behind the urgency of this particular report. We did not vote for a DA budget that was pro-affluent areas at the time. That had nothing to do with the poor and disadvantaged black people of the city of Johannesburg. And therefore, we are not going to assist them in trying to recover based on a deliberate act to get the city of Johannesburg to end up in a situation in which it finds itself in. I hope I've answered on behalf of the minorities in terms of our position relating to the item itself. So the state of the coalition, as I was trying to refer to, the minority opposition parties remain intact and we are growing. As you can see, we started out as 10 councillors represented in council, now we are 12. And there's no telling how many more political parties will begin to understand that what is actually needed in the city of Johannesburg for us to prevent a situation where the city of Johannesburg is faced with a financial crisis worse than the one in which it's in right now. So the minority opposition parties remain intact and together. The date of the motion, we still have to undergo a programming committee meeting that one of the astute journalists has asked about. So the motion will be represented, I think, at the appropriate time by the proposer of the motion, because the issues that are represented there are totally different to the ones that align with other communities who are sub judice, or they cause a lot of misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the rules of how programming committees are supposed to be conducted. But I can with confidence say that we, as the majority currently in the city of Johannesburg, which is the minority opposition parties, the African National Congress, and the economic freedom fighters, are of the strong view that we do not want Mayor Phalatse as a mayor, and we are going to remove her as such. And the contents to that motion, as alluded to, will be represented by the proposer. So that is our position as it stands. I think I would allow my colleagues to speak on the other matters. Thank you.
Let me respond on the Mashaba issue. You know, the very first motion that was put for Dr. Mpho Phalatse, it was supposed to serve in council on the very same day that the motion of the then Speaker, Councillor Dakama, was served in council. However, in a program meeting, Action SA said, you know, there is a pending case. There's a case that is sitting in front of the court which relates to the field band issue. And at that time, nobody knew about that. So then, there was then an advice, a legal advice, to say, let's go to the court to check if indeed this case is there. The legal team went, and then they found that the case is dormant. They reported back to the Speaker. The Speaker withheld, which was Councillor Dakama, withheld the information from the councillors, because had he not withheld that information from the councillors, then that motion would have served in council at that time. That is why it was allowed to be in the motion. So when the motion was then submitted again, it was submitted with the understanding that the case is dormant. So that is why it actually passed in the programming committee. Now, if you look at the timing then, on the 26th of October, Mr. Mashaba then goes and resuscitates the case. That is why I'm saying he resuscitated the case, because it was dormant. When the legal team went to check the status of the case was dormant. That is why it actually passed in the program. Otherwise, it would not have passed, because the rules do not allow us to discuss in council something that is sitting in front of the courts.
Sorry, sir.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting. Besides the court case, there's a criminal case that's been opened against Mpho Phalatse. You surely know about it. That on its own also speaks to that the matter is being, leave alone these issues about the fact that Mashaba went to resuscitate. That criminal case, is it not enough to stop you from proceeding with whatever that you ought to?
That's exactly the case that was dormant. It's exactly, this is in that field band case. Remember what happened is the Mayor Mpho Phalatse was an MMC of Health and Social Development, when at the time Mr. Mashaba was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Then this relates to payments that were done to an NGO that Mr. Mashaba was part of. That is how Dr. Mpho Phalatse is linked in this entire thing.
Not entirely so. Yes, the criminal case is there, I agree. It's being investigated and it's been so long. Nothing is coming out of it. But even in the court papers, Phalatse, as former MMC at the time, and she was part of the mayoral committee that was chaired by Mashaba, which decided to give that 11 million rand contract to that particular field band company, unlawfully so. Even there, she was quoted as a witness simply because she was presiding over that particular portfolio. So what I'm saying is that there are two investigations here. One of the court, which the court, as you say, Mashaba went to resuscitate it. But let's park that aside and say the criminal one that is being investigated by the police on the road of Mpho Phalatse, not the one that's before court. That was it not enough to stop you from going ahead with the motion of no confidence. And I'm saying you should have known better as people who drafted legislation, those rules in council. But as members of the committee, programming committee, you missed that. I'm simply saying, as an ordinary member of the public, why are you hell-bent on these issues that are being adjudicated elsewhere? Why couldn't from the beginning, or even for the second time, why didn't you just say, we don't want her, we don't have reasons, we just don't believe she's the right person? I'm sure the number of votes would have kicked her out. Well, the point that I'm trying to say here is that you, in terms of your rules, are saying matters that are adjudicated elsewhere cannot be entertained. Why can't you just veer off and say, we are enough with her? What stops you?
Thank you very much. I would like to respond to that. So, as you would know, that in the programming committee, we do not discuss the content of the motions themselves. That's the first aspect. We have legal representation that would guide us on the admissibility of the motion. It's not up to the councillor's discretion to dictate whether or not a motion is passed or it's rejected. The reason why this motion went through that programming committee with success is on the basis that it is one sentence that says she failed to declare. Now, as councillors, we have a responsibility to declare any issue that is before the court, any criminal investigations that have been lodged against us. I mean, we have the Integrity Commission. We have to declare any interest that we do with the city. But we haven't spoken about any other issues that may be related to her conduct. However, we've limited it to the fact that she did not disclose the fact that there was a criminal case that was opened against her. It's just one sentence. But that sentence was enough to be distorted and interpreted multiple times. And like you had said, I would like to agree with the fact that the issue of former councillor Herman Mashaba, an Action SA leader, and the fact that he recited a case, that is neither here nor there, because that case has no bearing on the contents of the motion itself and whether or not it is admissible before a programming committee. Now, we have witnessed the fact that a political party in its minority in South Africa is coercing the highest decision-making body in the city of Johannesburg into overturning a decision. Now, if they want the support of the minority opposition parties on the matter that they want to bring as urgent in council, they must go to the High Court and tell them to vote in council. And that's how they are going
I'm not sure that are you answered all the questions I covered? Vali?
My answers are not covered.
Okay, which ones are still left? Okay,
I asked,
okay.
what do you think the loan is for? Do you think it's to pay for salaries? And the motion, I just see now, the speaker spoke to News 24, I suppose she's at the Salga Summit, and she says the motion is coming on Friday. Are you guys aware of this?
You said who is it?
The speaker.
Which speaker?
The speaker of the city of Johannesburg. She's at the Salga briefing, at the Salga Summit, and it says here in News 24 that the motion against the mayor is coming on Friday. Are you aware of this at all?
Is it the motion? Sorry, can I just interrupt? Is it the motion or the council sitting? Because
No.
on the 11th there is a council sitting.
Motion. News 24 is reporting the motion.
To be tabled or to be elected?
Sorry, I think
The person has
Sorry.
sponsored the motion.
I
Yeah,
think that's
Joe, here it is.
I
Joe
think,
Mayor Mpho Phalatse will face motion of no confidence vote on Friday.
let me try and assist. So I think the Speaker of Council is somewhere in this building. The only person that I know for a fact is that Salga is the chairperson of the minority opposition parties, who is in fact the sponsor of the motion. Now maybe there may have been a misrepresentation in the media in terms of what message has been put across, but I can assure you. And second to that, we have specific deadlines that are provided for in a council, not notice, but a calendar that is designated for submissions of motions, submissions of oral questions, written questions. We have to adhere to that. So the only time we can be able to successfully say that the motion has been submitted is after the closing date, which is tomorrow. And then from there, programming meeting will sit on the 15th. So there's no way that a motion of no confidence of any kind on any person can be brought before council on Friday. I can say that in confidence. And then, what was the other question? What is the loan used for?
The question I asked you that
Can we please attend to Mbali's questions so that
Yes,
they
I
don't
was
get
trying to
off?
I thought you were saying.
We'll come back. Look, okay, okay. But we can quickly take also Mbali's questions so that we can move.
Yes. Was it a question about the loan?
Mbali, which one? Which one was
So
still
what do you
pending?
think the loan is for? Do you
Okay.
think perhaps it may be to pay salaries?
Okay. May I humbly request that I think there's an MMC of finance who is Councillor Sudabi, because what I can inform you right now is that unless they change the current report, which is illegal according to the findings or the judgment of court, because when court rendered a judgment, it said that all the decisions that were taken by the administration that was in place at the time have to be reversed. That document is signed by MMC Margaret Arnold, which makes that document null and void. And therefore, we cannot be having a discussion on a document that technically, according to a judgment in their favor, does not exist. That is one. Two, I think she would be in a better position to respond to that issue. And I hope that in the next undertaking, we would actually be in a position to present to you a financial solution that would have remedied all these challenges that are mushrooming as urgent at the time when we were in office for the 2 weeks that we had occupied it, because we saw that there was a danger lurking And as such, we needed to be proactive because this is the city of Johannesburg that is on the line. What prevented them from putting those measures in the past 10 months that they were in office? So in response to you and in closing off the issue is that I think MMC Sudabi would actually be in a better position to tell you. Thank you.
Let's go for another round. Natumuluko will take you for the second round. Yes, ma'am?
Okay.
So,
Balenhle Mthethwa, SABC News. So I'm just going to try and ask Mbali's question again. So during the statement, we heard that the 2 billion rand loan might be, the DA's, part of the DA's plan to mask its financial failings, right? And my colleague Mbali asked if you think the funds or the loan is meant to, if it's supposed to mask the DA's failings, is it not then to pay salaries? Or because, we've heard that in the past, loans would be taken for big projects. And this time around, it seems as though there's no big project, and yet there is the need, an urgent need for a 2 billion rand loan. We've also heard about the fact that it's a short-term loan, and it seems as though proper processes have not been followed. Can we get clarity as to what sort of processes need to be followed in terms of, the city acquiring loans and the dangers or the concerns around, JIBA and so on? Thank you.
is there any other question? Because we are out of time already. Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm from Power FM. I just wanted to ask specifically to what Mr. Reddy was saying. You're saying that residents of Johannesburg shouldn't concern themselves with internal politics in the council, but they would have to be, because I'll make an example. You have Pickett up saying that if they don't get a new fleet contract, then ultimately they'll have challenges and bring services. You look at such issues, you would have an instance where residents are concerned with the constant bickering between various political parties in council. And number two, the second question, my final one, I just wanted to ask you: do you think the Speaker of Council, Colleen Makubela, is acting impartially? Because there's been allegations and accusations of her hiring processes and calling meetings. Executive Mayor Mpho Phalatse removed, and you pointed out the fact that the mayor has also used the media as a playground. But in the same right, one could argue that the speaker has done the same. When you look at perhaps her the information she relays on social media and her comments thereof, you would be expecting the Speaker of Council to be impartial and not to essentially choose sides, and just oversee that things are happening and that services, and that you ultimately serve the residents of the city.
All right. Sisanda Mboleko, Sunday Times. When we received this media briefing or media invite, you said you'd address two issues that I don't think you've adequately touched on. The first is the payment of service providers. The second one is Phalatse's overreach and interference in procurement processes. I don't think you've outlined that adequately for us. So if you could just go over that one more time. Thank you.
Is it a different question?
No, she reiterated it. But here's another question. We are hardly 6 months into this current financial year, 2022-2023, with I think the city passed a budget over, you'll correct me, 66 billion or 70 billion? 77 billion, yeah. Like I'm saying, hardly 6 months. What went wrong to a point where they would require a short-term loan of 2 billion rand? I'm sure you are able to receive this Section 71 report. You are able to monitor the finances. Where did you start to see the red flags?
Okay, guys, we are closing the second round, which is the last, because we're out of time, and the speaker is available if any of you want to speak to him.
Hi, Alpha from Eyewitness News. Just a small follow-up question, and it's just me trying to understand what exactly goes on within the programming committee meetings. 2 programming committee meetings, I think, happened last month, if not in the last few weeks. both of them are said to have been invalid or unlawful activities or decisions were made at the programming committee meetings. What exactly is going on? What procedures are not being followed? Because the mayor was supposed to face a motion of no confidence last week Thursday, but it didn't go through because some of the decisions taken at the programming committee were unlawful. What procedures are not being followed to ensure that the decisions are made lawfully within the programming committee? Because surely, if you are saying that the mayor might face another motion of no confidence soon, we also fear that the same unlawful decisions may be taken. Can you just take us through what exactly goes on?
Thank you.
Okay, let me respond on the first question. On the question from Baland Mpho.
Yes.
In terms of what is it that the 2 billion rand is going to be used for, the best person to answer is, but this is what is happening. I'll give you a reality of what is happening on the ground. Right now, SMMEs are not being paid. And the reason that is being given for this need for this loan is the fact that there are cash flow mismatches. Now, if you're talking of cash flow mismatches, then you know it's your short-term things where you need to be paying your salaries, your SMMEs, it's all of those things. So, but the best person to answer that would be MMC Sadapi to say, why is she wanting this to be tabled in council as a matter of urgency? Because it's the same question that we also have, which is one of the reasons why we do not want to approve this as the minorities. Because remember, it's surprising that this report is now termed as an agency report, when she had received this in June already. So you had June, you had July, you had August, you had September. For 4 months, this report was not tabled in council. But now all of a sudden, it comes through as something that is very urgent. And bearing in mind the fact that already if you go to Soweto, you go to your elders, SMMEs have not been paid. So that is the problem. I was trying to respond to that issue of what is it that this money is going to be used for.
So SMMEs have not been paid for services rendered to the city?
That's correct.
We have a list of this because last week she denied this.
Okay. No, what we'll do immediately after this, we will give you that information, because even councillors are being harassed by the SMMEs, and the responsible MMCs are not coming to the party; they are running away.
I want to quickly, I hope that you can hear me very clearly, but I want to quickly just go back to your question, madam. Also Mbali? You had asked the second part of the question, what amount will be paid back, and you made reference specifically to the JIBA side. Before I come through to you, sir. That is the big question, because JIBA is on fluctuation. And based on, because it is Johannesburg based, and based on the fluctuation thereof, one cannot even find on the agreement. It says that it would be aligned to JIBA, and it says over the 2-month period. So they'll take the last 2 months and then they'll align it. And knowing the current state of what our finances look like, it could be anything, plus the 3.04%. And as a result of that, I cannot give you a reasonable and fair answer in terms of that. So your question was the citizens of Johannesburg, which is priority to us. And that's why we are here to serve. Because we, and I say we because as a collective, it's the residents, yourselves, that have placed the councillors into these positions to serve you, and not the other way around. May I correct myself? What I was meaning to say is that it should not be the residents' problems as to what is happening internally. The fight should not make it out into the public eye. We should sort out marital problems within the bedroom and not air our laundry outside. And there's the problem, is when you have an executive mayor that shows absolute immaturity of going out into the public domain and taking cheap swings at the speaker, who, by the way, is not impartial. It's a fair person that understands that the residents is priority and the residents should be taken first. And that is why she has been on this drive to make sure that services are delivered. And when she does this in consultation. She does this with the mindset of, when she sits at the programming committee, remember, she's not there to make the final decision of what passes and what does not. As my learned colleague has alluded, there is a legal team, an incumbency of legal people that sit there to give direction in terms of what is deemed admissible and what is inadmissible. I hope I answered you. Thank you.
To answer the question on the overreach, but I think that's the one that we've been missing. You see, this relates to a directive that Dr. Mpho Phalatse issued to the acting city manager then to appoint a particular service provider to investigate Mr. Floyd Brink with the sole intention of removing him from the race of being city manager, of being appointed as a city manager. That is what we're talking about when we talk about the overreach.
What did you see that reflects that the finances of this city were in trouble? As I said, we are hardly 6 months into the new financial year.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to also assist with that issue of political overreach. Now, Section 56 employees can only be investigated by council approval. It doesn't matter which office you hold. You do not have that right, because the authority that you have in the executive office is delegated by council. So a Section 56 employee, you have to notify council of misconduct, and council has to deliberate on the merits of the argument and then approve an investigation. You cannot propose with preliminary findings that were established as a result of the directive that you had given to an accounting officer at the time who has assisted you in fact, interfering in procurement processes. Now, what my colleague has not mentioned here is the fact that aside from the letter itself with the Councillor Mpho Phalatse's signature, Executive Mayor Dr. Councillor Mpho Phalatse's signature, is the fact that we don't know how many other documents are there that she has given directive to officials to perform on specific instructions that would have a predetermined outcome in her favor. We are not going to cast aspersions and we are not going to speculate, because we want thorough investigations to be undertaken to ensure that we are able to hold the executive to account as council in the city of Johannesburg. And just to also, before I respond to the 7.77 billion, or rather let me start with that issue. Before you can actually have the 77 billion in your account, it requires a certain level of creativity by the leadership themselves. Because this 77 billion, in the context of her representation, is an illusion that only exists in her head, that she's using to in fact cast aspersions onto the ANC. Because the 77 billion can only be attained through the critical services of the city of Johannesburg, which is revenue collection. Now, you cannot write off debts of millions and millions of rands and then expect to still arrive at a 77 billion rands budget that you can begin to plan the future of the city on. Before they can even implement any creative measures on how to direct the future of the city of Johannesburg. They are already in 5 billion rands deficit. Now, if you cannot, in your creativity, raise 5 billion without asking for an emergency loan, it's a problem for the citizens in the city of Johannesburg. And this issue, it's first of its kind, like our Mayor Mpho Phalatse. She's also first of a kind. So I think maybe it comes with the territory. So just to respond also to the issue of the programming committee and whether or not we understand what is going on there. My apologies, sir, I forgot your name. Alpha. No. I think it was you. Programming committee. Oh, it was Alpha. No, my apologies, Alpha. Thank you very much. So, the programming committee has its own structure and it has its own legal team that guide the processes there too. Now, you are talking about 2 illegal programming meetings. Those 2 programming meetings were never illegal. Councillor Makwenchu had alluded to the fact that this particular motion on Mpho Phalatse was admissible in the programming committee, subject to the fact that the legal team had to verify whether or not the matter was before any court. When it was discovered that the matter was not in fact sub judice and the case was dormant and it had no bearing on the motion itself, the motion then became admissible. The second programming committee that you are referring to as being unlawful, that was to note. It was to note the motion to say, we note the fact that this issue is not sub judice and therefore it can be tabled before council. Now, as a council, I have a responsibility to sit in the programming committee, whether I like it or I do not like it. Because it goes beyond just a motion of no confidence. The very same issues of plans that are required for the city to recover from its current debt have to go through programming committees to say there's a motion by, for argument's sake, Action SA that seeks to provide a remedy for the situation that we are in. It goes through a programming committee. If I, as an Al Jamaa councillor represented there, decide to walk out before that motion is passed, I'm doing that at the detriment of the city. And subsequent to that, a court decided or ruled on a matter to reinstate a minority government, whereas they find themselves right now in a situation where they have to rescue the city without the ability to do so. So I think the issue of the programming assists you in understanding the situation there, and the sub judice element of it that is non-existent. The speaker and the fact that she is impartial. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the speaker or the executive mayor or how issues play out in social media or in radio and TV interviews. What I can speak of as a councillor, because they are my counterparts, is their duties towards the offices in which they occupy. And for there to be a narrative, because I think that's where we need to go to say that the speaker is impartial. I heard this on an interview saying that maybe she is indebted to some political party for what they may have done for her. Now, I'd like to set the record straight to say that as the minority opposition parties, we are the ones that recommended Pauline Makubela to become speaker, recommended to the broader collective. If there was any issues or decisions or debts that were made outside of the knowledge of the collective, that has no bearing in their discussions or their conflicting views, because as human beings, we are entitled to disagree. It's just that we need to choose the forums in which we use to engage. Furthermore, I don't believe that the speaker rushed any items to be presented in council. There was a precedence that was set by Councillor Vesco Pekam as the speaker, where there was a 4-hour notice between 2 council sittings, and that one was to approve one illegal agenda item, which is to instate the secretary to council from the one that was seconded from Cape Town. Whereas we have capable professionals in the city of Johannesburg that do not need to go that much administration and cost the city as much as it did to instate this man into that particular position. It took the city close to 500,000 to approve just for the man to sit in the chair. And he did nothing to bring value to the city of Johannesburg. That's why he's no longer here. So the speaker, in the current speaker, as a matter of fact, and the manner in which programming committees are conducted, I wish I could share with you responses that I have, in particular, between myself and the former speaker, Vasco da Gama. Whereas, whenever we requested for a matter of public importance to be tabled before council for deliberation, it will always be an issue of there's no urgency in this matter. There was never a time that the Democratic Alliance-led legislator had approved any debate in council. It was for the first time under Councillor Makubela's stewardship, where we debated about the water crisis issue in the city of Johannesburg and in South Africa at large, for the first time. So, whether impartial or not, it is not subject to a motion of no confidence that has to be tabled against someone that does not belong where they are and are there by force, brute force, and assistance from the judiciary. The collective has spoken. Let us allow due process without the interference of any court to decide our fate as the city of Johannesburg. And I can assure you, we'll eventually have solutions that the residents can take comfort in. I think, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much, Councillor, for asking. No. Any other further questions or interview requests? Time is up. You know what to do. Even those who would like to have a word or an interview with the speaker, you know what to do. Thank you so much, colleagues, for coming. You're much appreciated.
You say you will not vote
Did we say that? No, we didn't say that.
What are the questions? Are we going to discuss? I need to vote those questions.
No, it's okay. Right. My leader. Thank you. Thank you, leaders.
Yeah, I said, I just want to make a friend of mine. Yes, I know. I'll take it. No, she says because she's not part of the minority factor. What is this? But I can check, I can double check. I can go so check. We cannot. She doesn't know and she's looking for it. And she's let me double check. We are aware. SABC are not doing that on the issue number 2. I don't understand why the pandemic election in this state. Yes. It's like, yeah. This man, he was a member for only 6 months. He was on the middle of June. This man must have paid together with the interest.
It's got a crossing there. It's fine.
What will you set up? What will you set up?
No, I'm just here to clarify the lights that are going on. I'm not a Sanga. I'm here. There is no motion of no coincidence. Who is reporting this case? But you see what media people do to us. How are you